Hello and welcome to the program. According to a recent poll, over 40% of Ukrainians support the country's accession to NATO. But what do Ukrainians really know about NATO membership, and how does this knowledge influence their opinions? To talk more about this, we're joined in the studio today by Ruslan Kermach, political analyst at Ilko Kucheriv Democratic Initiatives Foundation. Hello and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So first question, 42% of Ukrainians potentially rely on NATO membership for their national security. It is not the majority, though. So what about the rest?
This is not the first poll in which we conducted, and we see, compared to the previous year, for example, a certain decline in the support for NATO for around 5%. But at the same time, we see that over the last at least 3 years, the level of support for NATO as the security option was not lower than 40%, right? It means that really some drastic changes in the public opinion occurred, and we fixed it in the period between the year 2012 and 2014, when actually the Russian aggression started. So it's changed the public opinion drastically. Just to compare, at that point of time, the NATO was supported by around 13%. It was amongst the lowest security options which people supported, and was almost twice lower compared to the option of unity with Russia.
So you're saying it's stabilized, basically, even if the last poll showed more, less,
exactly.
support, it's
we didn't
stabilized
reach the
all.
absolute majority, as you rightly mentioned, but we see that there is a certain group which is now relying on NATO, and it's quite high. At the same time, another second security option which is highly supported, and we fixed a steadily growing of this option, is non-block status. Just to compare, in the year 2015, already after the start of the Russian aggression, it was supported by around 23%, and now since then, several our pollings, our surveys showed the steady growth.
So non-blocks would mean neither NATO nor
non-block, like neutral status. Sometimes it's neutral, plus some differences, right? Because when we see non-block, it's usually like passive neutrality. Active neutrality is when you sign some agreements, bilateral agreements with the partners, with the neighbors, and you fix the status that you are a neutral country. Just to mention, so this indicator at this point is the second most popular option. It's on the level of 35%. More than a third of the citizens of Ukraine aged 18 years and older support this option overall in Ukraine. The majority of them are residing in the southern and eastern regions. But we see that the dynamic is growing, and we see that the lag between two options, between NATO and non-block status, is 7%. At this point of time, so it's quite close. And we have such, I assume that closer to the start of the real electoral campaign, the campaigners, the anti-NATO supporters and political parties of the opposition will try to exploit this topic, and we can even see the further growth of this position. Another option which we propose, for people to choose which security option, the military alliance with Russia and other CIS countries. We see that this option has dropped down and fallen down. And now it's on the level of 6%.
But wait, so that means that there are still people who believe that there is a potential military alliance with Russia?
Yeah, but it's a marginal group. 6% overall for Ukraine. Of course, the higher this position is in the southern and eastern region, but even in this region, it's not more than 10%, if I'm not mistaken. So we can clearly see, when we see that non-block is getting more and more support, this option of military alliance with Russia is absolutely low, and there is no dynamics of further growth.
Now, since you talked about 2012, 2014, since 2014, what are the main trends? Because that's not the only survey. You did more general surveys. What are the main trends in the Ukrainian population that your survey more or less showed?
So there are quite a lot of them. Speaking about support for NATO and the European Union. There's a growth, which we already know. At the same time, we see that the amount of people who are supporting Russia and any kind of closeness to Russia is getting lower in all the macro regions of Ukraine at the same time. And we see that the growing identity, national identity among Ukrainian citizens is also observable in all the regions. So we must say that we have even prepared the monography. Our institution prepared the book, which analyzes all the aspects of the changing public opinion. So quite a lot of them. And identity issues, foreign policy issues, economic views, economic priorities. So quite many.
2019 is the election year. Do you think, and you said earlier, that NATO might be exploited, is a topic which might be exploited. Do you think that all the topics that you talked about will be used during the electoral campaign?
For sure. For sure it will be used because as our pollings and the latest services, the previous definitely show, it's quite emotional and still sensitive topic. And there are some differences and some gaps observable in the sense of the regional support. Yes, we see clearly the absolute majority of citizens in the West and the Center supporting the NATO, but at the same time, the people, if we ask them about the probable referendum on NATO, if it would be conducted, we see that the citizens of the South and East would rather oppose NATO and would vote against it. So the level of this gap, the margin of this gap is getting lower compared to 2012, for example, because at that point of time in Donbass, the support for NATO was close to the theoretical margin of error of around 2% and 3%. Now it's 20% on around like this in the East as well. So we see that the growing support there, but still it's sensitive topic. And we see one thing which was a bit, I would say, astonishing, yeah, and kind of surprise for us, that still we put in the survey as option, we asked the people, how do you perceive NATO, what NATO for you is? And one option was quite provocative, a kind of ideological cliché, which is known from the Soviet times, like aggressive military bloc.
Aggressive bloc or defense alliance.
Yes, and defense alliance. And we have seen that around 30%, or even more than 30% in Ukraine still are supporting this option, like the one which they take. For me, it was a great surprise.
So they perceive it as a tool against Russian aggression before being something that could protect them anyway.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, probably. But I believe this is the point which needs further study. Maybe further study, because it seems like NATO is and support for NATO, or the position for this, is a kind of a value for a certain group of people, and they do not take it in the rational arguments. It's kind of sentiments which are coming from the generation, probably transferred from older generation to the other generation, which is what for me was very much surprising, that people in 2002, so 16 years before, there was 35% people saying that NATO is aggressive military bloc. Then there was a growth. In 2007, this was the year, in December 2007, it was quite close to the moment when the then President Yushchenko was promoting the idea of NATO, and we were quite close to gaining a membership action plan at that point. And at this point of time, there was 52% already saying that this is aggressive military bloc. And then again, in 2018, it's getting so. The dynamic is very, very strange, I would say, because even from the demographic standpoint, over the 16 years, the certain generation or part of generation which was grown up on these ideological cliches has passed away. But nevertheless, we have seen
the cliché
continue still. So they're still alive, and it's the point which needs further to be studied.
No, like there is another interesting point here. Is like on this poll, I read that in general only about 11% of the population that you interrogated believe that they are well aware of what NATO is. That's an astonishing That's an astonishing figure here. How do you explain that? Like,
yeah,
you talked about feelings and this perception, sentimental perception of feelings. Is it linked?
Yeah, in certain way, yeah. I think in all national contexts, I believe it's not a very low position. So it demonstrates that the 11% are really quite aware of what NATO is. Of course, it's subjective. It's kind of personal perception. But at the same time, 55% say that they know something, but they lack probable information. And this is the point where the government, the civil society organizations, journalists, authorities should take more initiative in promoting and explaining people. And we hold the press conference yesterday, and we discussed with also with director of Center for NATO Information Documentation Center. She stressed some good points on this. So much work should be done, and we see that the problem there's some regional discrepancies. So that the eastern regions lack more information. There are more people in the east who believe that absolutely no information work is conducted on NATO. Of course, there's certain groups which simply are resisting any information. NATO say we don't care about it. So around 20% say that we don't care. But at the same time, 14% say that it's quite a lot of information materials about NATO available. 38%, more than a third of populations say that they see some publications, movies on NATO, but they appear they're quite less appeared on media. Maybe it's the problem of the access to the mass media. Yeah, I know that the work which is done by certain institutions, civil society organizations, they use probably some. I don't know. They conduct some roundtables, some trainings amongst youngsters quite often, but they don't reach maybe media and television, because sometimes it's not on the agenda and in the interests of the people who are controlling TV channels. I don't know why. So it's also the point which needs further study. We just see only the problem which needs to be digged. But one important point, I know that much work is done among young population, amongst pupils, among youngsters, and what is important to know that the polling is conducted, the survey was conducted among the old, about adults aged 18 and more. So I believe in my optimistic expectation that in several years those youngsters who are quite more informed and less prone to support this kind of ideological cliches which are ingrained in the minds of many people of the older generation, they might become the future supporters of the alliance when they appear in our pollings.
Well, and that's all we can hope for. Thank you for this overview. It was a pleasure to have you in the studio today.
Thank you for inviting me.
That was Ruslan Kermach, political analyst at Ilko, Kucheriv Democratic Initiatives Foundation. Thank you for watching the program, and stay tuned for the rest.